Alright, let's continue our looking through Tartakore's 500 Master Games book, and still in the chapter with the Italian games. Go to the year 1929, again into the Carlsbad tournament, game between Becker and Mattison. And like promised, it is Italian game. Knight c6, bishop c4, and we get the bishop c5 line again. And white goes with the c3 expansion in the center in mind. And black humbly covers his central pawn. And white goes d4, and after capture, drops the bishop back here. White has established his center. Black has the standard pressure on d4, a little claim. The pawn holding the pawns back, at least this pawn. Well, we go with the knight c3, very flexible, already defending this, and this, well, it's well covered now, but knight f6 gets out of the way. Black's ready to castle, puts a little pressure on the center. Just the best square for the knight. f3, c3, knight c6, knight f6. Everybody's influencing a lot of central squares. Nice star. White castles, and black goes and pins the defender of d4 to another defender of d4. Threatens to capture here. And white covers that pawn with the bishop e3. And again, like last time, you can notice that any kind of a capture on f3 is really safe. We can probably capture with the queen and have enough compensation, but any capture with the g pawn in these situations where the black loses the light squared bishop, so the light squares are much more safe, and it's not an easy way to access these squares. For instance, the knight is limited by the bishop and the pawns, and you can add the queen there, but you have very hard time adding the knight to attack. Black's chances of successful attack are quite low. So instead of capturing there, trying to snatch a pawn or damage the pawn structure, black just castles, tucks his king into safety. King's safety is quite important in chess. And white does a little preemptive bishop b3, gets out of any tactics based on the knight takes e4 and then d5 forks. No more bishop to fork. And black plays rook e8, very normal looking, just to an open file, puts pressure on the e4. It's now attacked twice, defended only once. And white covers it with queen d3. Of course, a little clumsy, but defense is a defense. And black highlights the downsides of this kind of a situation immediately and drops the bishop back. The idea of going here, adding extra attacker here and pinning the pawn to a queen. And white just goes very solidly, knight d2. Just everything is about e4 at the moment. Maybe we can even add f3, but that's of course going to weaken this diagonal, which is not ideal. Here black's best line probably would have been bishop g6. Just continue with the already set plan, adding pressure here. Maybe threatening to d5, taking advantage of the pinned a-pawn, e-pawn. Let's say give a sample line. I don't know if d5 is doable here. Knight takes, bishop takes, queen takes, e takes, bang, hitting here. Maybe we probably can take here, and grab this, and probably black's better here. Instead of going with the bishop g6, he went with the knight g4. Maybe premature. I don't know what's the idea. Are we going for the bishop or are we thinking about some kind of mating attacks on h2? Downside of this is of course that there is d5 unguarded and white jumps there straight up. And now any kind of a queen h4 would get punished by knight f3 and then queen pretty much has to go all the way back home. And then bishop g5. Of course you can't play f6 because of the discoveries would be deadly. And your best bet would probably be to block with the knight, but that's a bit ugly. Really a nasty pin to go into. And instead of any kind of knight blocks that look very nasty, any kind of a queen c d7 or sidestepping that would run to h6, that kind of stuff. And then wherever you go, let's put the queen into a non-lethal square. But the same thing applies now. If the knight drops back, we just can take it. And if you capture back, it's still going to be quite a massive fork, even though there's no queen. So black decides to grab the bishop. The problem is that you open the f-file. And now the entire game will revolve around this f7 pawn. Black defends, but of course a sad move to make. You put the rook to quite passive square out of the half-open file. You just have developed it. White goes for doubling up, and black plays. Well, black probably should have started to kick the attackers off. Knight a5, for instance. There's a sample line for queen c, bishop c2. Let's say bishop here. b4, kind of preemptive move. Knight defends the b4, then doubling up here. a5, we just keep on that pawn there. Let's say king sidestep that, then we can kick the knight away from here, so we free our knight from any defensive duties of this kind of fork. We need the queen, we need the bishop. Queen here, we take, knight f3. Everybody's targeting still that, and again you could start to see problems on h-file too. And these things are pretty sidelined at the moment. Instead, black tried to challenge the very powerful d5 knight. And here, that we are not really after the bishop on b6. It's planted at the moment well enough. We are more interested about the h5 bishop, the defender of f7. That's our strategy. Crash through there. Black could go here, but then we keep on adding pressure here. Black could try to cover, but we capture the bishop. Then knight f3, another piece comes to put pressure on the f7. Let's say c6, trying to cover the d5 and at least keep the bishop away. White just goes to here, attacking that f7, and now already you have no way of defending it. Like you can, the queen is not very good piece to take anything back. You'd have quite a big material deficit here. Instead of queen e8, f6, then we can capture here, or we can capture here. Now if you take the knight, you're gonna run into rook f8, so that's not takeable. And if you capture here, then we open this diagonal here, bang, and toast. So black kept the bishop alive, but again he leaves the defense of f7. White adds a rook there. Everybody about Raymond. Queen c8. Maybe we could think about going there. Bishop d7. knight c4, g6, and g4. King gets out of the pins, e5, and d5. Black gets out of the attack with capturing the bishop, which was not that great anymore, and keeps on breaking stuff up with e4. Black captures, queen takes, and bishop goes to c6. White just goes to queen e3. Eyeing these squares, there's still knight h5 ideas in air. King gets out of the way, but white does the knight h5 anyways, even without check. Ideas to just 3 or infiltrate via the dark squares. And of course, f7 is crashing through too. So black takes the knight, but white just captures on f7. Black takes, and white takes. Knight went to d5. The bishop going to d5 would have led to a same-ish looking end. Queen h6. Bishop takes then a rook. We give a check. King g8. Queen takes f7. And queen f6 mate. Well, knight d5 is a little better because it keeps away this check, but only temporarily. White threatens mate, black covers it, but then we kill the knight, so covering the rook. Well, if you take here, we just check. You have to block and mate. So here, black tried queen g6, but white had rook f8, capture, forcing this and that. Alright, but a nice demonstration of what can happen if the f file opens up and the weak f7 square got exploited hard.